Buying in your personal name or buying in your company? The pros and cons of each and which you should probably do. Next on the Paperstac Podcast. Here we are. Welcome back to Paperstac Podcast. My name's Rick Allen. This is Brett Jonathan Burky.
Yes.
Johnny be good. How you been, man?
Good. Good.
Yeah, we work Mondays and Fridays from the house. Typically,
right.
That's our work from home days. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday we're in here. Mm-hmm. So Brett hurt his back on Sunday or Monday. And couldn't come in Tuesday, so I was like, Brett, we probably need to come in Friday. He's like, "Ugh." It's like my kids. I'm like, I need you guys to unload the dishwasher. Top, bottom. They're calling top, bottom. They hate it though.
Do they really?
But it's like you on Fridays. You're just like, It's like throwing a cat into a bathtub. They're like, "Mah."
No, that's not that bad. I would have come, man. I got floors installed and I was putting. I have a little bit of leftover material.
It's funny. I asked Brett. I go, Brett. So did you measure right? And he goes, oh yeah, I measured right. And I go, oh, you nailed it. You had enough. He's like, oh, we got way extra. I'm like, well, you didn't measure right then, because measuring right means you finish with like one or two boards extra, or one or two maybe a box extra. There's 10% of waste. You figure like, sounds like you erred a little bit more on the.
Yeah, a little bit. So I had 7 boxes of tile or of the flooring left over, and I put it all in the car. They're not light, so I put them all in the car, and then I get them all out at Lowe's, and then I walk them to the front, and then this year they passed a new policy, like a 90-day return policy. Because I would have stuff for like 2 years and I'd return it to Lowe's. And so they're like, it's been over 90 days. I was like, no, I'll go get a manager. And so I was like, let's talk. And so like they eventually showed me the screen. They're like, we can't do anything. It's been 90 days. I was like, fine, just keep it here till I go shopping. Then I had to put it all out in the car, take it all back out, and I put it in the attic. And it was just, but then the baseboards, it's kind of.
How long are the baseboards? How many? They're
16 feet. So they're my entire garage.
16 feet long. And how many extra did you wind up with?
37. I ordered twice the size of the house. I don't know how the hell I did that. The really crappy thing is I painted all of them. So like I have like 37 extra painted baseboards. That was such a pain in the ass to paint in the first place. And I ended up painting that. I hated painting them because it was all night for like 2 weeks. And now when I realized I had 37 extra, I was like, I could have saved like a week of paint, just painting. So
I know. So when I went over and I saw Brett painting, and I may have said this already, but I always, I have an uncle who I ask him, how long is it going to take you? How long does it take you to mow your lawn? He's like, it's about 7 beers. So I was like, well, Brett likes beer. I'll dampen the blow of having to hand paint all these things. I'm like, I don't know, how many beers does it take you to do one thing? And he's like, I don't know, like 1 beer or, 3/4 of a beer per thing. I'm like, well, look at it this way. You've got 70 beers to drink because you've got 70 boards. And little I know, you made 38 extra boards.
37.
Man, how did you blow the math on that?
I think the guy kind of ripped me off because I just went like this and said, I need this many. And he's, that'd be so many boards. And so then I was like, all right, fine. And I bought it, and then he delivered it. And then so the crappy thing is I wanted it out of it's been in my garage for months.
So where are they?
Still in my garage, just sitting there sideways. I can't even get to my trash can. So hopefully someone's going to buy them, and then I'll get them out. That's going to be, they might come by tomorrow afternoon. And hopefully buy them for his next job, the guy who installed them. So,
the good thing is, though, if somebody were to buy them off you, they're already painted.
Yeah, but then also, too, the guys installed the baseboards, and I only painted one side. So I painted one side of the tops, and they ended up installing a lot of them upside down. So I got to repaint all the ones that they installed upside down. And since some stuck together, so the paint was stuck. I mean, I got so much still to do. It looks good enough. I'm just not going to look at it. I'm just not going to look down. I'm just going to keep looking straight, and I'll deal with the baseboards later. So, but yeah. So today, what do we got? We got something fun.
Yes, you asked me, and people have asked.
People ask this, and it's one of those things where I guess it warrants like a video, because some people, I've even had it in the past. What we're talking about is the difference.
Video where I'm not providing any sort of legal or taxing advice, just laying out the facts.
Just laying out the facts. But yeah,
and then
so
you go seek your own advice. Disclaimer.
Yeah, it's right here at the bottom. Disclaimer.
Yeah.
But it's why would you buy a mortgage note in your personal name versus an LLC, or an LLC versus a personal name? And this has happened in the past where people have bought them in their personal name and literally got the recorded document and said, "Hey, that has my name on it." And I was like, "Yeah, you used your personal name." And they're like, "Well, I don't want it at my personal name." Like, well, to do that, you're going to have to get a new assignment and assign it over yourself, get it notarized, and re-record it. And then eventually they were like, I don't think they ever did it. But it was like one of those things where people overlook it, and it's like, why would you do it one way or the other? I'm assuming that you would always want to do it in an LLC. I would do it in an LLC. But people ask, and
I think for the most part, you're going to buy an LLC. It just that's the way I would do it. That's the way. It just seems like the best way. But I guess there are some pros to doing it in your personal. One is simplicity, right? It doesn't get any easier than, hey, I'm buying this as me, as my own investment with my own capital. Here it is. Take a look at it. It's super straightforward. Maybe it's easier for tax filings, less regulation. Just, hey, I'm just buying this. I'm buying someone's note. I'm becoming their bank.
Right.
So that's something. I've heard of some tax advantages.
To buy it in your personal name.
Yeah, there's some jurisdictions where if you buy it in your personal name, there's less capital gains tax. Again, go look at it. It's something I've heard. I find it hard to believe. I feel like you could do it a lot easier through an LLC, but I don't know. Estate planning. If you're doing estate planning, it's super simple to be like, hey, this just passes over to this estate, right?
I can see that.
So that's something that's pretty easy. And then privacy. And while everything is going to be recorded in public record, right? So if it's an assignment, that gets recorded, whether it's your personal or if it's an LLC or a company name. Depending on your structure and if you've taken any sort of finances in or anything like that, you may have a requirement that you have to disclose what you just purchased publicly. If it's through the SEC, they're going to find out. They're going to know. You have to let them know. So that's kind of like a stretch because I think anything is pretty much going to show up in public record. I would say just the simplicity for me. The two benefits of doing your name is it's super simple, it's super straightforward, and then the estate planning side. It's not that difficult to just say, look, I own this, it's moving into my estate. Some of the cons of personal name is liability. Holy cow, right?
Yeah.
Slip and fall, and you own it, it's a rental, well, they're coming after you.
But in notes,
Okay, well, whatever it might be, whether it's, okay, you're foreclosing on somebody.
Yeah.
And not all your I's are dotted and T's are crossed. And you have to have something kicked out and they can sue you for the foreclosure costs because you're the one foreclosing on them. If the buyer wins, then you're responsible. So that's a huge thing. Some of the cons are maybe there's limited access to capital. It might be more difficult to get a personal loan, right, to buy something, where if it's an LLC, it's easier to get the capital back. They can come after the LLC. It's more common that they're loaning, there'll be a personal guarantee, but loaning to LLCs or corporations.
When getting funding?
Yeah, when getting some funding. So that's something.
They'll probably take you more seriously, too.
Yeah. So, that's it. You could also, depending on your jurisdiction, you could have higher. There could be other options, better tax sheltering in your LLC. So you may think you're getting a better tax deal. It could be a higher tax deal. I don't know. That's, again, it's all depending on your accountant, your situation, your jurisdiction, where you are. Because obviously federal is federal, but state, there's different state regulations.
Right. And another thing, too, that not only talking about personal and LLC, you could have an LLC and still have your personal address. So that's something else that people got to consider is that you're putting your personal address. You're telling this person that is in the house that you are their bank, and if you put your personal address, they can see it ideally where it was returned to is usually wherever the person is. And so unless you're keeping with something like Casey Wilson or I have a trust in Wyoming, and so that's where it's in Wyoming, but they see that address.
Right.
But yeah, otherwise, the person that, if they ever want to look up their mortgage and public record, say, okay, who owns my, oh, this is where they live. Well, they're trying to foreclose on me. They could come, I mean, if it was in the same area, maybe they could come to your house. I mean, that's kind of scary. You know, like, I wouldn't want that. No. I mean, so that's something to consider. Not only is it personal name, but also personal address. So consider both those. So
let's look at what are the pros to buying in your business? Can you think of any? Tax efficiency.
Yeah.
I mean, tax efficiency, I think tax efficient. I think, if I'm looking at the two, I'm saying business is going to have more benefits tax-wise, maybe lower rates for corporations, also more deductions.
Yes, definitely more deductions.
Yeah, so that's definitely one of the pros. Another one is limiting your exposure or your liability, right? There's a veil of protection there. And
I remember one time you told me, this was a long time ago, gosh, we were in the Winter Garden office, which was probably 2017, but they would set up, him and TJ would set up, every time they bought a house that they turned into a rental, you would change the LLC into the address of the rent.
We would create an SPV, a single purpose vehicle. We would create a new LLC for that particular asset if it was going to be a rental, and it would, so that way there's only one asset in the LLC. If for some reason somebody did a slip and fall and they tried to sue, which, knock on wood, that never happened, but
they could only come after that one.
Yeah, there's one asset in there versus at the time there was 200. So
if you had it all under the same LLC, they might go after.
They could try.
They could try,
but it's just we just everything was their own. So it was the 1392 East Washington LLC or Land Trust or something along those lines.
So that was just another thing to set up once you got it in your possession.
Yeah, that was just something else there.
That's smart. So
you can limit your liability. Another thing is there's opportunities to reinvest your income back into a business, right? And do some tax sheltering there, but really be able to just reinvestment. I'm buying other stuff pre-tax, stuff along those lines. So, and then we kind of talked about it before. One of the, some of the cons of buying your personal, obviously, there could be some of the positives or some of the pros for buying your bank, but is access to capital. You can tend to have more access to, companies have better access to capital through loans or recorded earnings or something along those lines. So that's definitely something to sort of consider. And then if chances are if you're buying in a company, maybe you've got some corporate structure set up. Maybe you've got, even if it's as like a virtual assistant. Just if you're thinking in that mindset of, hey, I'm doing this through a company, maybe I've got some of my earnings set aside to handle an administrative assistant, maybe you're building a team. Maybe you're a big company now. Maybe you started with just an administrative assistant, and now you've got director of acquisitions, dispositions, an asset manager, stuff along those lines. So typically if you're buying in a company, you maybe have a different corporate structure where you have employees and you have people set up to help.
So setting it up from the beginning is the most important thing. Because had not set that up and you bought 10 in your personal name, if you actually ever wanted to be owned under the LLC or whatever corporate.
Got to assign them.
You got to assign them.
You got to assign them.
And record them.
Yeah. You pay for the recordings and the assignments, and that's part of the deal. But,
right, but I'm just saying it is another step. If you didn't set
yeah,
up
sure, of course, but it's not one where you're like, oh, I can't fix this.
Oh, no. I'm just saying it's just something you'd have to do.
Right. So, those are kind of the pros. Some of the cons are going to be obviously complexity level. It can get as complex as you'd like it to. You can have, LLC as members managing another LLC, or golly, when we originally set up Paperstac.
I remember that.
The complexity was, we had like the mothership, Paperstac, Inc., not spelled right, it was PAPER, space, stack, STAC, Inc., and then underneath that we had Paperstac LLC, and then we had Paperstac IP. And the IP was held over here, and it leased it did leasing rights to Paperstac LLC.
Yeah, I remember that.
So there was super complex, and it can work, and there can be a place for that, but there's also something called the corporate veil.
Right.
And
you don't want to pierce that.
If you pierce the corporate veil, which basically means if you're treating something that's like it's three separate entities, but you can call it three separate entities, but if you're like in the back office not treating it like three separate entities, like they share a bank account or this or that, or this sometimes pays for stuff for this company, well, then it doesn't work. You've pierced the corporate veil, and all the benefits of the protections you have. Now all three of those companies, should one get sued, can be like, ping, ping, I can get them all. And the idea was behind the Paperstac, well, let's keep the IP here, so they're the ones never doing the business, so the intellectual property is always protected, no matter what. Mm-hmm. And then they'll do the licensing over to here, and that way this is the company that's forward-facing. Mm. If something happens and they get sued, they can never come after the IP.
Mm. No, that's smart.
I mean, it's super smart, but I mean, the guy that set it up was a really smart guy that set it up for us. The people running it at the time had no clue as to corporate veils or this or that. And so looking back, like...
Talking about us?
Yeah. You know what I mean? And that's whatever, but it's just you look at those things, and if you don't know, okay, there's this corporate veil here, I can't pierce it. It gets, and you do pierce it, then it's like all this protection you thought you had is gone. And then, like, for instance, when we went to go raise capital, they were like, what is your corporate structure? And we actually had to go through a corporate restructuring to make it more palatable for venture.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, but it was one of those things where you can make it, that's the problem with it. That's one of the cons of doing it in your company, is it can get super complex, super quick. And if you kind of give carte blanche to the attorneys and the accountants and this and that, you get somebody in there who's a real ninja and a wizard, and they over-engineer the hell out of it, and all of a sudden you're like, man, I'm just buying notes. I don't need to have 3 LLCs and a management this or that, or so that's one of definitely the big things is a complexity. Another thing you could run into is double taxation. If you're not set up right, you could get taxed on your income through your corporation, then you get taxed on it as income or capital gains when it comes back to you. So you got to make sure that, it all comes down to, like you said, setting it up right. If you set it up right at the beginning, you have professionals, you tell them what they, I want to have the most protection, the best tax benefits, and as simple as it can be. That's a good recipe for, setting it up that way.
Yeah, no, it is good to actually just learn about company structure and like why the benefits of LLCs. Like we have a friend who I learned this over dinner one time in Miami. He basically said he has all his cars in LLCs, separate LLCs, and at that time I was confused. I was like, why do you have your cars in LLCs? He's like, I own 3 Porsches, I own a Cayenne, I own a whatever, the 2 other nice, super expensive cars. He's like, if I get in a car wreck with some person, he's like, I look like a bank to them. They're like, they'd want to sue the crap out of me and think that I'm all connected. He's like, I just put them all in separate LLCs, and the LLCs own those cars, and if you want to come after that, you come after that car, and that's all you're getting.
That's it. Well, no, that's it, yeah. So,
which was really smart. And then when I bought this recent car, I bought it in my personal name. And as soon as I got out the title and I went to the freaking DMV, I was like, God dang it. I was like, why not? I was like, and now I still got to transfer it over to the trust, but it was just a couple $100, but it was still the fact of, I was like, I knew this, and still I didn't implement it.
No, but, so, that's it. There's some other cons. Regulatory, if you're a company, you may have to jump through some more regulatory hoops. If you do a certain number of deals, there's regulatory hoops. There's sometimes a touch less flexibility on getting capital out of your business the right way for personal use. You know what I mean? Yeah. You just got to make sure you're taking it out at, whether you're on a payroll or you're doing a qualified business distribution or something along those lines. So there's a lot of little, it seems like if you're a company, you've got to follow the rule book a little bit more as far as like I got to make sure, because you're set up for, you could be gaining all these tax benefits, right? But with that, there's a different set of rules to play.
Sure.
You got to play by a different set of rules. So that's it. I mean,
so bottom line, from what I'm saying, I'm saying get an LLC.
Yes. Again, not legal advice, but I'm probably I'm buying into a corporation, or maybe I'm buying it in my self-directed retirement account.
Something like that. I mean, just the amount of write-offs you'd have would outweigh the filing fee you'd have to have with the state. I mean, they're not that much. They're like $150.
No, it's the cost of doing business. I mean, taxes are filing for your taxes are probably going to cost you more because you're an LLC or a business, and you'll have to pay extra, for that, and then you get your K1. But it's still, to me, it's just the protection and the liability for me is kind of it.
Okay. So there you go. So if I'll reference this video next time someone asks, go watch this video.
Yep.
Basically, bottom line, go ahead and get an LLC. And you can still do that while you're in the process of in a transaction. It doesn't take that long to do. You can do it
you can do
a day or so. At least I know in Florida, it took us not long to get that, and then you get the EIN and done. And you can still use it on your vesting. You can pretty much have your thing filed and not even have the EIN, but still use it as your vesting profile. So
EIN, but yes.
EIN.
EIN. So, anyways, that's it. Buying or selling, or buying in your company versus your personal. Hope you got something out of it. Stay tuned for the next episode of the Paperstac podcast, where we will be discussing
different stages of note investing.
What is it? Whether it's going from your infancy to this or that.
Yeah, things you probably should know before you get to a certain level.
Okay, that's where you want to go with it. What do you need to know to move from level to level?
Well, just
whether it's you come in as a broker and then you move to partnering with people and then you move to using your own capital and then you move to.
Well, I was thinking more along the lines of people say they maybe watch some videos and they say, I want to buy this non-performing note in New Jersey. And I'm like, whoa, slow down there, Haas. Maybe we should look at this one in Alabama that's performing for the last 15 years. Let's start here. Let's go around the track on a tricycle before we start in a race car.
Yeah, see, I'm not being a good one to talk about that because I bought a non-performing loan.
It was different times then.
It was different times. So we'll be talking about that on the next episode of the Paperstac podcast. I'm Rick Allen, Brett Burky. Thanks for joining us. See ya.